Jason Statham and David Ayer definitely have a nice thing going. The Beekeeper revitalized both of their careers to a certain extent, with Ayer putting a superb polish on what could have just been a run-of-the-mill action flick, turning it into perhaps Statham's best solo action vehicle to date. And now, they're back at it again with the Sylvester Stallone-penned A Working Man, which is based on the novel Levon's Trade by Chuck Dixon, which I have to say is a way better title than the generic Working Man, which sounds like a Steven Seagal movie from the 90s. But I digress. So in it, Jason Statham plays Levon, an ex-commando who now works as the foreman at a Chicago construction site. When human traffickers abduct the teen daughter of his employer, Levon snaps back into commando mode only to discover that her abductors are deeply embedded with a secret faction of the Russian mob. Naturally, all hell breaks loose, and by the time the credits roll, hundreds of Russian mobsters have been killed. Like the Beekeeper, it allows Jason Statham to play exactly the type. One of the problems that I've always had with him is that, like many of his contemporaries, namely Vin Diesel and The Rock, he absolutely refuses to take his licks on screen, with him too inscrutable a hero. Given that that's not likely to change, as Statham is just Statham at this point, Ayer's Beekeeper used that aspect as a strength, turning him into a good guy who's so indestructible that it actually becomes kind of amusing. In both The Beekeeper and now A Working Man, his hero character is almost more like a horror movie slasher, with all the fun coming from the various gruesome ways he dispatches his incredibly outclassed opponents, who you're itching to see die in horrifying ways, which Statham delivers. It's a formula that works well for him, with them dropping any pretense of making him a relatable nice guy hero. He's a force of nature, and when he's unleashed, there is hell to pay. While it's maybe a notch below The Beekeeper, it's still a very well-crafted flick, with Ayer adopting the same technique that served him well in his last go-round with Statham. Basically, he starts the movie off slowly, but steadily ramps up the action to the point that by the climax, the scale has just gotten bigger and bigger, with Statham seemingly offing hundreds of bad guys by the time the credits roll. Like in The Beekeeper, the baddies are so detestable that you won't find yourself feeling the least bit guilty as Ayer ramps up the audience's bloodlust. Last time it was scammers preying on the elderly, and this time it's Russian mobsters trafficking teenage girls. It's familiar territory for Stallone, who co-wrote the screenplay with Ayer and also produced it for his frequent collaborator Statham. Like Ayer, he knows exactly how to play to his star's strengths by building up the bad guys to be so over the top in their depravity that really, once Statham starts relieving them of their teeth and eventually their lives, you're cheering him on. While there's no central bad guy, the formula, which I usually hate, serves Working Man quite well. The movie works the same way Beekeeper did, in that every time a bad guy we think is the main villain is dispatched, another even worse one pops up. The carnage borders on being spectacular, with the climax a particular highlight. Statham is at his best as Levon, in a role similar to a part that Stallone might have written for himself back in the day, with him having at least a hint of vulnerability as he has a daughter he's trying to reunite with. Levon is definitely a hero in the John Rambo or Marion Cobretti mode, with even a hint of Lincoln Hawk thrown in for good measure. And if you know who all these guys are, well, then this is the movie for you. Of the supporting cast, David Harbour makes the biggest impression as Levon's former gunnery sergeant, who's now blind but serves as his confidant and de facto armorer. Jason Fleming, an old co-star of Statham's from back in his Guy Ritchie days, also shows up as an early bad guy for Levon to mess with, although given the formula, he isn't around for too long. Ariana Rivas also makes for a spunkier than expected kidnap victim, with Sly and Ayer giving her a lot more to do than is typical of the genre. So, if A Working Man is so much fun, then why is it still a notch or so below The Beekeeper? For me, the movie has a few moments that fall flat, such as a poorly shot motorcycle chase, which is more confusing than it is awesome, while Michael Pena is also utterly wasted in a nothing role as Levon's boss, whose daughter is kidnapped. The movie also isn't quite as dazzlingly well shot as The Beekeeper was, although it definitely has some impressive production design. These are relatively minor quibbles though, as overall action fans should eat this up, and it's way better than the last Statham movie that Stallone wrote, which was Homefront. While it would likely only do okay business theatrically, although I think it's going to do better than people are expecting, this one is going to have a very long life once it hits streaming. I know I'll be giving it another watch before long, and even though, I had some issues with it, I'm tempted to go a little bit high with this one, and I give it an 8 out of 10 just because, wow, I had so much fun watching it. I mean, it's not a classic, but it's pretty damn good, and considering how bad action movies have gotten recently, the fact that we get one that's this slick and this entertaining really is something to celebrate.
Get to work.
A Working Man, rated R. Only in theaters Friday.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.